The sentence that might cost me my license was written in my voice. I don't mean figuratively. I mean it uses the same clipped structure I've trained myself into over 12 years. Short declarative statements, no qualifiers unless required, neutral verbs. It sounds like me on my best days, calm, clear, inappropriate. But I didn't write it. I noticed it on a Tuesday afternoon while preparing files for an internal audit. Not a disciplinary one, routine. The kind we all complain about but secretly like because it proves we're doing things right. I'm Kate. I work as a child welfare social worker. I handle intake assessments and court documentation. Most of my days are notes, phone calls, and follow-ups that go nowhere. I see kids briefly, parents defensively, supervisors when something goes wrong. I'm good at my job because I'm careful with language. I believe words become records, and records outlive people. That belief is the only reason I saw this sentence. I was reviewing my contact log for a case involving a 13-year-old girl, Leah Johnson. Non-emergency placement review, history of instability, no current abuse allegations. I'd met her twice, once with her aunt present, once alone at school. She was guarded, polite, practiced, the kind of kid who watches your face while she answers. In the log entry dated October 18th, under subject presentation, there was a line I didn't remember typing. Subject appears emotionally rehearsed. Responses lack spontaneity. Effect suggests performative compliance rather than genuine engagement. I stared at it for longer than I should have. Not because it was cruel. I've written worse things in better language. But because it was precise in a way that I couldn't access emotionally. I don't describe children as performative. I avoid interpretation-heavy language unless I'm prepared to defend it in court. I assumed I'd typed it and forgotten. That happens. The system autosaves every 40 seconds. Sometimes I draft notes in Word first. Intake _Johnson _1018 _V2. Stored in a folder called Pending Update. Then paste them in later once I've cleared the tone, cleaned things up. I tell myself that's professionalism. My supervisor calls it risk mitigation. I checked the metadata. The log showed the entry was last modified at 3:42 p.m. on the 18th. That was correct. I'd been at my desk then. I remember the hum of the printer. I remember reheating coffee and then forgetting to drink it. I still didn't remember writing that sentence. I opened the Word draft. Same sentence, same punctuation, no tracked changes, no comments. I highlighted it, sat back in my chair, waiting for the feeling of recognition to arrive. It didn't. That night I dreamed about my notes. Not the words themselves, just the act of typing. My fingers moved without resistance. The screen filled line by line. When I woke up, I couldn't remember what I'd written, only the certainty that it was accurate. The next day, during supervision, I brought it up casually. I'm noticing some phrasing in my older entries that feels harsher than I remember intending, I said, keeping my tone neutral. My supervisor, Dan, didn't look up from his screen. Your language is always solid, he said. Direct, but appropriate. I just don't remember thinking that way about her, I said. Dan scrolled. It's not a value judgment, it's an observation, and it's supported by the interview. Is it? I asked. He finally looked at me. You already wrote it, he said. Does it matter what you thought? That was the first time I felt something tilt. Not fear, irritation. The mild, professional frustration of being dismissed. I let it go. I always do. A week later, Leah missed a scheduled check-in call. That wasn't unusual. Her aunt called back an hour later to reschedule. While logging the contact attempt, I noticed another sentence I didn't remember composing, this one buried deeper in the case history. Pattern of strategic disengagement emerging. I felt my throat tighten. The sentence wasn't wrong, it was just early, premature. I would have waited for corroboration. A missed call isn't a pattern. I scrolled back through the file, slowly this time. There were more. Nothing overt, nothing that would get flagged on its own. But together they formed a tonal shift, a version of me that was colder, more certain, more willing to infer intent. I started printing things out. I told myself it was for clarity. Screens lie, paper doesn't. I laid the pages on my dining table and marked the sentences I didn't remember writing. There were 9. The margins filled with my handwriting as I cross-referenced dates and times. The handwriting was mine. Same rightward slant, same habit of pressing too hard on downstrokes. The pen felt heavier in my hand than usual. I requested the audio recordings from my field visits. We record most interviews now. It's framed as protection for us and for clients. I told myself I wanted to make sure my notes aligned with what was actually said. The file from October 18th took a moment to load. When it did, I recognized my voice immediately. Calm, encouraging, neutral. Leah's voice was quiet. At first, everything matched. The questions, the pauses. Then around the 14-minute mark, there was a skip. Not a glitch, exactly, more like a dropped frame. A half second where the sound dipped and then returned. When it did, my voice was sharper. "You're very good at saying what you think adults want," I said. I felt my stomach drop. I didn't remember saying that. Leah hesitated. Then she answered, "That's because adults get mad when you don't." Her voice was flat, tired. I kept listening. My tone stayed controlled, but it had changed. Firmer, less exploratory. I could hear myself narrowing the conversation, guiding it toward conclusions I'd already formed. When the recording ended, my hands were shaking. I listened again, then again. It was my voice, my phrasing, my cadence. There was no sign of editing, no jump cuts, no tampering. I closed my laptop and sat in silence until the hum of the refrigerator became unbearable. After that, I started seeing it everywhere. Not in every case, but just enough to notice. Emails I didn't remember sending, flagged as sent late in the evening. Notes whose timestamps aligned with hours I knew I'd been working, but couldn't recall distinctly. Language that leaned harder, earlier, that I believed I would allow myself to ever write. I started carrying my work phone with me at home, even into the bathroom, afraid that leaving it unattended would let something happen without me present to witness it. When the audit notification came through, routine file review, no action required, Dan forwarded it with a note. Standard, just make sure everything's clean. I replied, of course. 2 days later, he forwarded another email. This one included legal. Flagging for awareness, the message read. Some tone concerns raised during preliminary review, likely nothing but documenting. My name sat in the middle of the thread, inert and exposed. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I opened Leah's file one last time before the audit meeting. I scrolled to the top. The subject presentation section was unchanged, except the sentence I'd highlighted weeks earlier now had a comment attached. Observations supported by subjects' consistent behavioral modulation across settings. I hadn't written that comment. The last modified by field listed my name. The timestamp was 6:17 a.m. I'd been in the shower then. I remember because I'd been rehearsing what I would say if asked. I would explain that the record didn't feel like me without sounding unstable. At the audit meeting, they didn't accuse me of anything. They didn't have to. They spoke in the same neutral language I use every day. Objective, appropriate, concerned. Afterward, Dan walked me to the elevator. "You're good at this work," he said, "but you get close. Sometimes distance helps." I nodded. I always nod. That evening, I caught my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. My face looked calm, professional, the kind of face that reassures people. I wondered if that was the version of me they trusted, the one who wrote clean, confident sentences without hesitation. I opened the audit summary draft. At the bottom, under worker presentation, was a line I hadn't noticed before. Worker appears calm and appropriate. I stared at it for a long time, trying to remember it. I'm hoping the version of me that they read is the same one who's still here.